feel like my best photos I've taken that I feel most connected with are like the photos when I was taking it that I was like uneasy while taking it, where I was like, my heart was racing and like, you know, I mean, there's been photos where like I could hear the people like talking on the inside. The house is just like a wreck.
Welcome to the Blind Through app dedicated to the expression, inspiration of art, and the creative process. In this episode, I had the chance to talk to the incredible Jake T. Fox. Jake is a photographer based in Western Pennsylvania who captures intriguing and often disquieting nightscapes, which have an emphasis on exploring our relationship with the houses we live in. I thoroughly enjoyed my talk with Jake, so much so that I've split the 3-hour interview into 2 parts. Part 2 shall be out next week, but in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this first part. The best place to start is just introduce yourself a little bit, tell the people about your work if they have never seen it.
It's depressing, I'd say. I don't know. I went to a gallery in my town recently, and the guy's like photos were all like these like insanely colorful like landscapes, and he was like, I mean, I shoot digitals too. I shoot mostly film, but like to keep up with Instagram lately, I've been like doing a lot of digital work because like I'm like, especially with film being more expensive now, I'm like really particular when I shoot. So I shoot like I've been like doing a little bit of digital, just kind of keep up with like Instagram every day and not get burnt out. But no, yeah, no, his like photos are like super colorful and gorgeous. I'm like walking through here and I look at my girlfriend, I'm like, fuck, I'm like this, like my photos are like so depressing. I mean, that's fine because like I used to play music and I played like a lot more like I was like in a metal band and then I was like an alternative band. And I still make music now, but it's always like no matter what I make, I can't make like happy poppy music. It's always like dark. So it's just like my photos are the same. So yeah, I guess they're like a lot of dark undertones. And I think that's why all my photos are definitely, that's why I shoot everything at night or like in crappy weather, whether it's like rain or not, to give it that mood. So yeah, so if you haven't seen my photos, I guess I'd say it's like very like narrative driven night like landscapes, like almost like this like weird like kind of like look at America, I guess, or at least where I'm from. It's like a look at where I'm from, which is like I'm in like a area of the United States called the Rust Belt. So it's like up in like I think it's from like Michigan. It goes from like around Michigan, like around Detroit, and like wraps down below like the Great Lakes up through Pennsylvania into New York, and it's like basically where like the whole like industrial boom was like back in like the like when like the country was like the 1900s or whatever. So it was like all in out, just abandoned rust, and like the towns were all just like turning to shit as the years go on. So yeah, I live like where I live like along a river, like on the Ohio River. It's just like I'm like living like the one like nicer town, and all the other towns around here kind of like run down. So, but yeah, so I guess that's how you explain my work. It's like narrative driven, a lot of night photography. But I like it to, I like my photos to have like meaning to them. I don't like them to be kind of like, I don't like them to just be like, oh, that's like a, like a pretty photo. Like I want people to feel something, whether it's like uncomfortable or not. Like, I don't know. I have some like project ideas that probably make people feel uncomfortable or like kind of push the envelope. But that's what I want. I don't want like to just be like, oh, a pretty sunset or whatever. Like something that's like, oh, that looks cool. I want you to like, I want people to feel things from my work more than anything. So
What's the most challenging part about being a photographer?
Finding your creative way. 100%. That's like, I don't know. I'm a very like hands-on person, and I pick up shit like really well. Like, I guess I'd say I'm like very intuitive. I can like really pick up on stuff. So like the whole like part of like shooting photos, like I guess like the whole like camera side of it, and I'm just because I like develop all my own film and I do all that stuff. And I've done stuff since like I've like started shooting film, and it's never been like a hard thing. I mean, I know how to like work on cars, and I'm like decent with computers and like figuring all that stuff out. So it's like I'm always been good with just like kind of picking up stuff and like learning stuff quickly. So, but yeah, the creative, like finding like your artistic like your artistic kind of like your creativeness in it. You know what I mean? I mean, I've been shooting photos for I'm 20, gonna be 24, and I've been shooting since I was like 18.
Oh wow.
I got like a film camera. My grandfather gave me his film camera, and then I got a digital because I used to play music a lot, and I wanted to like take photos of like my friends that were like in bands when like we weren't playing, like when we were just waiting to play. So I did like music photography for like a couple years, and then like a few years, like 3 or 4 years ago, I think three, almost 4 years ago. Yeah, 4 years ago, coming up soon. I started getting back into skateboarding again, and I found like a whole local community, and I started filming, and I use like a VX, like it's a like a analog like tape camera, and that got me like back like wanting to like, shoot film again. So, and then just like a year ago, about I want to say no, not a year ago. It's gonna be like 2 years ago now. I started getting like serious. I started getting like serious about photography because before I would just like go shoot like skateboarding, like not like when you see skate because I was mainly a filmer, so I wasn't shooting like skateboarding. I was more or less just shooting like everyone like hanging out or like like the kind of like when people were just chilling, I'd be taking photos because if I wasn't if like I'd be like if I wasn't skating, I'd be filming everyone. So I was doing that, and then like I like yeah, like 2 years ago, I was like, oh, I want to get all serious about my photography, and like I feel like there's like a point where I like this is like something like I want to do with my life, or like really like direct myself into. So ever since then, it's been kind of like it's funny when I started. I don't know why I was like really into street photography at the time. So if you go like the very beginning of my Instagram when I was like getting all serious about it, it's all like street photography and stuff. And like I just like I live like 45 minutes from our like biggest city, Pittsburgh. And so I have to drive like 45 minutes all the time there. And it just was like I like the city. I used to work in the city and stuff like that. But like I don't know, as I started like listening to more and more like photographers and like YouTuber like on YouTube, like I was like at the time I was listening to like the art of photography a lot, that YouTuber and like Ted Forbes, I think is his name. And I think he was just talking about like learning to like photograph and even like oh, I forget what her name is. Oh my god, she's such a huge. It's like what's it, Leah Bits? It's like I
I know
can't remember the.
Levitt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like she was talking about like just like learning to shoot like what's like immediate and like around you. So I started doing that. But I remember towards when I started doing that, we were like me and my friend were skating. I saw and like there's like a town called Oakland in the city. It's where like one of the colleges are, and they have like almost like San Francisco style like houses where like on a hill, and they're all just like put together, but like they're like shitty. They're not all colorful. They're just like kind of like run down and stuff. But like there's all these houses, and there's one with like one light on, and I'm like, oh, that'd be so cool to do like a little like a little project or series on like stuff like that, like these like apartments at night with like one light on and stuff like that. And then like I saw Willem Willem's video on Todd Haida, and it's just been like over. I was like, I don't know, because before there, I was like one of those people that was always shooting like golden hour. I never really thought to like. I took some photos here and there before during like when it was like raining. I really liked it, but I really never was like. I think at that time I was more interested in that like kind of golden hour photography. So seeing Todd Haida's work, it really like opened my eyes to like how like you could really like create mood in photos in a way I really didn't like think about it. Like I really didn't think about doing like long exposures before that. Like it really never came to mind. Like I knew you could do them, I just never really thought about it or like or anything. So like yeah, no, it was like because at the time I was doing like some night like street stuff with like Portra 800, like handheld with like an SLR, and was just like in the city. There's like enough ambient light that I was able to like get off like, and I'm like really steady, so I can shoot like 30 of a second and like no movement at all. So
That's
like
crazy.
I was getting by doing that and stuff like that. So yeah, it was just like finding that. But the thing about Haida with me is I think like his words I mean, I feel like I don't know. I mean, obviously, people compare me to him, or like I've got compared to him so many times, or like people like throw out like a list of photographers, and I'll be like on there with like I don't like it's great, but like I don't know. I don't like. I don't really like look like I have like two of his photo books, but I never like look at them before I go shoot or anything. If I ever like want to get inspired by him, I always like listen to like a lecture by him, or like I have like his like
Yeah.
workshop. I'll read like his words or something like that. I never like I never his like words and like what he says really inspire me. I feel like through that, like I almost like look to like listen to him and his stuff almost like a mentor in a
Yeah.
way. And like, cause he's very open about the whole like, like the whole creative process. And he's very like, he's very informative. And I mean, he's done books of like Aperture before and did like a whole
Yeah.
workshop book where it's like he doesn't tell you how to like do anything like on a technical scale, but it's all like kind of creative, like teaching you how to be more creative. So like that's kind of like was like a big help finding my way creatively. And I feel like I'm starting to get to a point where I'm starting to kind of like, because it's even he said it's like one of the best ways to like figure yourself out is like find a photographer you like really like and kind of like imitate their work, and you'll start to like figure out your own shit through that. So I've been kind of like, I feel like now I'm starting to like really kind of like kind of like branch out from like or like kind of add like different twists. Like I've been doing like some night shots with like I'll put Vaseline on a lens
Oh wow.
so it adds like smears and stuff. So it's almost like a cool painterly like because he does all the he always shoots through like a wet windshield, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to be doing that all the time. I'm not trying
Absolutely.
to rip him off. And I have this old this old photography book about like from like the 80s and about like Keller and like trying to and like it's like a creative book. And that was like one of the things there was talking about like using there was a portrait of this girl and it had like a ring of Vaseline in the
Oh.
lens, and so like it was just like this like whole like always like shearing and like from here down. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I was like, I want to try that with like stuff at night. So I've been doing stuff like that, but yeah, no, I definitely like I said, I don't look at his work when I'm trying to shoot or edit because it's like
Yeah.
it's almost like with music when you're like writing music when you like listen to like something a lot, you end up like, you know what I mean? Like you end up like kind of like subconsciously copying. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah. Like
like
you're aware of it.
like I make like shoegaze music, for instance, and like I love Slow Dive. It's like one of my favorite bands, and I was like just like messing around, like kind of like writing stuff one day, and I like, literally like pretty much ripped off Sleep, and I haven't like listened to Sleep. There's just like the chord progression, and I was like, this is familiar, and I was like, oh fuck, I was like, that's already one of their songs of like shit.
How, as a photographer, do you define your work without putting yourself in a box? And do you like being compared with other people?
Funny, I kind of put myself in a box on purpose, or like I was like kind of
Yeah.
pigeonholed myself on purpose. I don't know. It was like I mean, a lot of the photos I do shoot now, it's like almost I only shoot like I rarely go out and like shoot these like nice daytime photos anymore. It's always like I'll always be shooting, even if it's like I just like I don't know, anytime it's like crappy out, that's when I'm like out shooting. I never really shoot these like daytime or like, you know, chase that like golden hour anymore. I never it's not even like I'm not even like super interested in that kind of stuff anymore. When I see my old work, I'm like, ooh, like I want to go out and do that again. But it's like I'll develop and like, oh, this is cool. And I just never like I don't even like post it on my like personal account or anything anymore. Um, I don't know. I feel like I don't know. It's like my whole goal with photography is like I don't like I'm fine. I just want to be like a well-known photographer. I don't want to like I don't need to make a living off of it. I'm fine with like working, a normal job or whatever. I just would love to be like a well-known photographer and be able to like, make books. That's really what I want to do, is just be able to make books and to get them out to people and just become like an artist in that sense. I'm not trying to like be like rich or anything or, off of it. I just want to, just do stuff like that. So like sadly, Instagram's like one of the biggest ways to do that nowadays. I wish it was like back in the day where it was like you had to make physical work to like get notoriety or like stuff like that. That's just me personally. I don't know. I'm like an old soul. I don't like. I don't know. I feel like I'm like one of those people who goes born in the wrong fucking decade. If it was up to me, I'd be like. If it was up to me, I'd be like my age and like like my age in like the late 80s, early 90s in like UK, like be around like the shoegazing scene and stuff like that, like in Reading and stuff. That feels like to me, that's where I want to be. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's just like such a great time, like grow up in like, because I love like, I love like post punk and
Yeah.
new wave. Like my three favorite bands are like The Cure, Depeche Mode, and Slow Dive. So I'm just in that like British 80s like whole like culture for me. So I'm just like, oh, if I could just live in that time, it'd be great. Where it's just like, I don't know, I just feel like it's funny. There's like this honestly a great thing to say, but it's like it's kind of true. I mean, it is true, but like we had this in like the 80s or 70s over here. We had this guy that was like putting bombs in people's mailboxes called the Unabomber.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know about him? So he
Yeah.
wrote a book, and he said in the book that as uh as technology grows, the human experience declines.
That's so
And for a
true.
man that blows up people's mailboxes, that's really true. I could agree with that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
agree with
mean,
that.
it's like sucks because yeah, so like nowadays, I mean, I guess it's like Instagram is like one of the biggest ways that you can get yourself. I mean, you can go the traditional route and do galleries and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But I feel like one of the biggest ways to get your work out there is social media nowadays. And one of the, and I mean, I'm not saying that I'm like this isn't like me or whatever, but like I definitely realized like at the time that one of the biggest ways to gain like some sort of audience was to like pigeonhole yourself and kind of post like have very like I guess curate or very kind of like I don't know. I feel like people kind of like zero in a lot more on stuff when it's like a specific thing. And I mean that's fine because I that's the kind of work I want to make. And I think for my biggest thing now is just figure out ways to take that kind of box that I put myself in and create like more stuff in that realm and kind of branch out from there. You know what I mean? Kind of like take that mood and apply it to other things and like change up. And I think that's like one thing I'm doing now. So
Right. So social media, we'll leave that for later because I have a hell of a lot of questions about social media and just the whole kind of process of approaching social media as an artist and a creative. I once read a quote by, I can't remember who it's by, but by somebody, and they said that you have to pigeonhole you and your work before somebody else does. Like, do you agree with that?
yeah, I feel like that. I feel like that's like I mean, even if you just think about it, like you look at all the biggest artists, whether it's directors or musicians, they're not really doing like they're not like the best ones, that like make the, maybe the most emotional or the best, like I'd say the most emotional and like kind of like touching or like, kind of it grasps you are people that do specific type of stuff, just like, like the music I listen to, it's like The Cure. They have that like those dark undertones, that kind of
Yeah.
like gothy dark. Same with like Depeche Mode. It's like, or like Stephen Kubrick or something like that. Like all these artists, they have like their specific ways that they do stuff, and they might branch out from like it's almost like how The Cure was like. Pornography was like this dark like drug driven, this dark. You listen to pornography and he's talking about like watching people drown in the fucking shower and like dying and all this stuff, and then you just go to uh like Let's Go to Bed, like one of the singles like after Pornography, and it's like all poppy, it's like dun, 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 like all happy and shit like that. So but it's like it still has that like that gothy kind of, it's like that goth pop. So they kind of took that like that dark side and applied it to like more upbeat, poppy music. So I feel like photography, and I mean every art form is the same. So it's almost like I guess I kind of pigeonholed myself to this kind of dark moodiness, and now it's just me trying to find different ways to apply that to different stuff, whether it's like portraits or interiors or landscapes. It's like I kind of see it the same way, but I feel like a lot of the greatest, for me at least, a lot of the greatest artists I listen to, it's kind of like it's I don't know, it's like you listen to like the 1975, and it's like they change their style like every album. Yeah, I mean it's cool, but it's like I don't know. It's like I like one album by them, and after that, I was like, you know what I
Like,
mean? It's like I feel like there's nothing like really like. Sometimes when people change all the time, there's nothing really to like super like really connect to and grasp onto. Like the greatest artists, people go to him because they do a certain thing really well. it's like I said, like Stanley Kubrick, the way he like shoots stuff, it just has something like grabs onto you. There's like another director, it's like Andrei Tarkovsky. He's a Russian director. He's done like the movie Stalker and The Mirror, like all the stuff like that.
Yeah,
And it's like he's
yeah.
Russian Stanley Kubrick. But his movies, I mean, they shoot in the relatively the same, but it's like he always does these like super long scenes that really just like pull you in. Where it's like these long drawn out scenes, and it's just like that's like the thing about his movies where like I'll watch and it's just all in Russian, but I'm just sitting there and it's these long scenes with like this low eerie music of them just walking and the camera just slowly zooming in for like minutes on end, and it just pulls you in. I'm like, oh my god, this is so great. And I feel like that's like one of the things about I think putting yourself in a box in a certain way, or pigeonholing yourself, kind of where people kind of like they connect with something, and they come to you for that certain specific thing. Like I feel like people come, obviously if people like my work, they probably like it because it's dark and moody, not that it's like sunny and happy. If I post something like even like I mean if I post like landscapes, they never like normal. I mean it's always like my houses that do better. I mean there are landscapes that like go that like people really like, but it like I feel like the moodier it is, the more people like it. Like, if it's not dark and like contrasty, and people don't like it as much.
Your references are really interesting because his films are like long photos.
Exactly, they're insane. You like it's just like he has so many scenes in there that are like these amazing photos, and it's like they just last forever in the film. It's like I remember when I watched Stalker for the first time. I like went out and was like taking photos like that I saw in the movie because it was so like inspiring and like cool. I was like, because it's just like they just like the scenes in that movie just last forever. That it's it's almost like a picture. Like they just everyone sitting still talking. It's like a picture.
Like, have you ever made a film?
No, I there was a time where I was like that was something I really wanted to do was to get into filmmaking. I just don't think I don't think I could do it. It's like it's just there's a lot that goes into that. I think it's just too much for me, especially on the money side of things.
I think, to be very honest, I can see you do it very well, very minimally, because your work isn't necessarily big budget productions, is it? And you wouldn't necessarily need anything crazy. All you'll need is maybe even something like cinematograph, something where there's a bit of movement, or maybe that's an entry point into a film. Because one question I wrote down was, have you ever considered making a film? Because I think your work would be well suited, or at least lend your eye as an artist or director to a film.
I mean, I'd love to do that. I mean, honestly, right now I'm a FedEx driver. I've been doing it for like years now. I'm just like ever since I got out of high school, and it's just like it's exhausting, but they don't have benefits or anything. So once I turned 26 and I can't get my parents' benefits anymore, the healthcare in America, I'm sure everyone knows how trash our healthcare system is. So I don't know. So I've been wanting to try to get into media, preferably involving video, because I guess I do kind of make films because I do film like skating and make like videos. So like I love doing that. That's great. So I guess do that in a sense, but it's not like the what you would like I guess say for it's not the same as like what's it called as like I guess making that type of film. But I have like for my friend, he's a clothing brand that he's like he owns a skate shop around here, and I did like a promo video for him. It was like super French,
Yeah,
French. Like I mean, even though we're out here
yeah.
in like this shit, it's not definitely not like France or anything. But like I was like I had like the old VX and I had the shutter speed down really low, so it was like dragging like an old like Super 8 camera, and just had like all these like zooms and like skips and stuff like that with like some like I was like I remember I went on YouTube and
Yeah,
just looked up like French classical music or something like that, and it's like this like it was like 40s French music or something like that, and just put that on. I was like it was like this
that's
weird
so
like
good.
almost like ad that you'd see like for it felt like some like ad for like a fashion like some like Vogue shit.
Think film and kind of moving images is definitely the future. And I think that's definitely something that I can see. Like, even if you did a really cool cinematograph of a house at night and the lights go on and off.
I've actually kind of thought about recently of kind of starting to do a little bit of like video stuff to kind of like throw in with my photography. Maybe for like I was thinking about maybe doing it for more of like prints. Like if I want to like, do a print or sell a print, like take a photo of something and do like a little video of like the house at night and like skips to the photo and stuff like that. Like something to kind of hype it up more, and like,
Yeah.
kind of drag people's interest in, especially with how like Instagram works and the whole like algorithm. It's just like you have to be like firing on all cylinders to like, like get somewhere on that. I mean,
Oh,
that's how it is. I mean, for like for a while there, I was like
absolutely.
2 years ago, almost now, when I was getting serious about it. That's how it was. I was just like firing on all cylinders, posting every day. I was out shooting, like almost every night. I was just like going crazy. And then I remember it was like at the end of summer, I started getting like, or it was like, no, it was like June, I think, or something like that. I started getting featured by like, like all these big film accounts like Nowhere Diaries and Film Wave. And it was like, they were featuring me like,
Yeah.
and they were
Post
featuring me
Cinematica,
like
places like that.
a
Yeah,
lot. It wasn't like
absolutely.
one feature. It was like, I mean, it was they were featured like multiple
Because
times a
your work's
month
good.
and
That's
stuff like
why.
this. I mean, it was crazy. And then like I started getting burnt out, and like I just felt like I was just like posting to post. So I wanted to slow it down and kind of like post 3 times a week and like up the quality of it. So like slow down posting, but post like better images. And then that's when stuff started kind of slowing down. And then like I started seeing decline in growth and stuff like that. And then I was just getting burnt out. And then like I feel like just seeing like it kind of like the momentum like going away kind of like started to like kill my motivation a little bit, and kind of like threw me into a little bit of a rut. And then uh this past year has just been it's just been, and it's for me, it's not even like COVID, because it's like, I mean, I would go to the bar and stuff. I don't really go out. I don't play music anymore. So it's like I'm out all the time. I mean, I haven't been like stuck in quarantine or anything like that. I've been just been like, for me, it's almost like life's just been kind of going on. I just like hit this like really deep depression this past year. At the beginning, it was like in January of last year, and it like just like recently, I started like in like around the New Year's, I started kind of like come out of it a little bit. But like last year, I was like hardly. I mean, there was like, I think when summer hit, like spring and summer hit, I didn't shoot photos for like months. There was like months gaps between. I'd like go out take photos for like one night. I remember I like shot photos with Willem in like spring or something like that, and then like didn't shoot for like months, and then like went out again, and then didn't shoot for like months again, and then it wasn't until like this past fall I started kind of like going out again and shooting photos and stuff like that. So yes, this past year has been like really dead for me, and like now I'm kind of like seeing the light, and I'm like, it's definitely like I've definitely been like, I don't know. I feel like there is a part of me that I was just like getting in my own way. So I'm just now trying to like just I'm like, don't get in your own fucking way. Just like work through it. It's worth it. You know what I mean? Like
That's one of the biggest challenges of being a creative is that you're your own worst critic. And if you don't want to do stuff,
exactly.
you won't do it. And it's not like it's not like you're making it's not a living. So therefore it's
Yeah,
easy for you to
exactly.
be like, yeah, I'll do it
It's
tomorrow.
it's
Um,
tough. Yeah,
it's so easy.
and that's been a thing with me too in the past, like especially with music, where like I remember like my like old band that I used to be in. It was like the my metal band that I was in, and we had this like really good EP going. It was just like I remember, yeah, I don't know what happened. I think it was just the people in it were just like I don't think we worked well together, and it just like felt like things were falling apart. I just lost all motivation, and we just never released it, and we just broke up. So I was just like, lost it. And I think now, I mean, I'm like really passionate compared to music. I mean, I was definitely like passionate, but I mean, uh, for me, it was a lot of other people got in my way. It was like that was kind of got in my it was kind of ruined for me, especially the scene. Because I remember it was right around like cancel culture started being like really big, and it was just like 24/7 drama. And I remember like it was like the week before we stopped like being a band, because we were opening up for this like pretty it was like a bigger band that we like that for me I like looked up to a lot at the time. And I remember our like vocalist like quit like literally like days before the show. It was like the week of the show he quit. And then he went on Facebook and said a bunch of like really messed up shit about his girlfriend or whatever. And then I'm like at work, my phone's like blowing up and shit. And like work like my whole band's like getting dragged into it and stuff like that. And we're like, dude, he's not even in the band anymore. And they're like, oh. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you're just like, I'm like at work, trying to like, I'm trying to like deliver packages and stuff like that. My phone's like going
Yeah,
off the,
do a
the
job.
damn hook. And it's just like, yeah, it was just like, like, the whole scene I was in felt so toxic. And I just like didn't really want to be a part of it anymore. So, but now that like photography is a thing I like am able to do my own, it's like I'm like my own worst enemy if things go wrong. So that's where I'm at now. I'm just like trying, I'm like focusing on just not getting my way and just to stay motivated. If, when I'm not motivated, to try to like push myself through it and be like, do it, get it done.
But one thing that I always think about, and even with the flying fruit bowl, is that like what you're doing now isn't what you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
doing next year necessarily. So take the motivation you have now to do what you're doing now and do as much as you want and much as you can now, because you're in the mode and the mood to do it now. And don't worry if you lack motivation in a month's time. Don't worry, because you'll either find it again or you'll realize you want to do something else. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think as creatives, I think there's a huge kind of myth that you have to know what you want to do and you have to have like a long-term plan and you have to be at this point, at this moment in time, at this age or whatever. You have to have so many awards or accolades or so much audience or I think that's not how it works. It works according to you and your personal response to the world, because that's what your work is.
It's definitely like, yeah, nerve wracking, I'd say, almost like scary. Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, every time I think about it, I'm like, oh my god, I need to like do more and do more. And then like, I look at these like other people that I follow, or I'm friends with like Jake Inez or Ryan Kemp, like that who that is, the world's analog. Do you follow him at all? Yeah, he's and so we always try to link up and shoot. There's
Oh
always something
wow.
going on. We've shot before. We're always trying to do more, but he always posts like it's always grainy, very like color, like they're always like purple hued or something like that. Yeah, all like purple hued. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
remember he like this past year he's been killing it. I mean, he like blew up. He's been doing great, and I'm like, I need to get on that, and like I need to like keep going. And I can, but it's like he's been like shooting photos for like 10 years, more than that, I think. And you know what I mean? It's just like, I guess it's like
Yeah, but I say, but
seeing that, I guess is definitely like makes me feel better when I'm like, well, like Ryan or, Jake or something like that. Even they've been shooting forever and they're now just, making.
like this is the thing also is that like I think what is so easy to forget, particularly on social media, is that we don't know who
Exactly.
people are in life. So like for instance,
Mm-hmm.
you have a day job. Your priority isn't going out and shooting every night. You can't afford to do that. Same with me, like I can't afford to be shooting every single night. Whereas in somebody who may be making a living off
Mm-hmm.
doing it has that time.
It's not. I mean, it is the one good thing I guess about Instagram is you don't have to be like full time doing it to kind of like gain notoriety or kind of like find your audience. You can get there without doing it because it's not like as I guess demanding. So I mean, like you can find, like I said, for me, like I said recently, like I said, is I've been kind of like throwing a lot more digital work in there because I can go out and shoot digital for one night and pump out like double the work because I'm very selective with like when I shoot film, like I only shoot on like cloudy nights. Like if I see stars, I go
Oh,
back and I'm like, yeah, I'm not shooting. Like me and my friend will go out and shoot, and I'll see stars. I'm like, yeah, I'm shooting digital tonight. I'm like, no film for me unless there's like a banger.
oh wow.
I'll do it and edit. I just like I don't like. I mean, digital with raw and stuff like that, you can like really like manipulate it. Like I can shoot on a clear night with digital and get the sky to look more the way I want. With film though, I go shoot on a clear night. It's like really like clear sky, like really blue ass skies, and like very blue skies. There's stars, so I have to edit all the stars, and then normally I have to like desaturate the skies a bit, so it's not like so like such like a deep blue color that's like really like saturated. So for me, that was like one of the things like a while ago that I made a decision. So like for me, the summertime and spring are like the worst times for me because it's just we don't get like we don't get like spring. We get storms. Once summer hits, it's like clear every night. Clear, rarely any like rain or anything. Rarely any storms. So like that's definitely like one of the struggles for me when like that hits because I'm like, oh fuck, I'm not gonna be. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
you want
digital has
atmosphere, that's what you
definitely
want.
been it was definitely like very taboo, I'd say for me. I was like so scared to post digital. I mean, I've been like, kind of like fucking around with digital like for a while now, just like messing with it, shoot like experimenting a little bit, but I'd like post it on my story. and I never like, I was like, oh my God, people are gonna be like traitor, something like that. It was like scary. And so like I was like, you know what, screw it. I think it was like Jason Hunter that does restore from backup. He like shoots only digital now.
Yeah.
I was like listening to his, I was like, yeah, he like I remember he got like a digital camera like a while ago, like a Fuji, one of Fuji X, and that's what I have one of those too. And that's what I got it because it's like I hate the thing I hate about digital is the cameras. I feel so disconnected when I use them. There's no like, that's what one thing I do love about the Fuji X series cameras is because they have like the physical like shutter speed and film speed knobs and stuff like that. It feels like a film camera. You can turn the LCD off and shoot it,
Yeah.
like a film camera and stuff like that. And it feels a lot more intuitive and better to shoot. And but yeah, he was on Analog Talks, and I was listening to it, and he was talking about how he's like, I don't even shoot film anymore. He's like, it's so expensive, I don't have the time for it right now. Like, he's like, I don't think I'm done with it, but just like right now, it's just this is like making me happy right now. I'm just like, and people like are still like he's like still doing great, and like people are like supporting it. So I said, fuck it. I was like,
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna start like trying it, and and I just like I went on shop for like one night with it, and I pretty much like filled like I had shit to post for like a week plus with just the stuff I shot in like one night in like a neighborhood. And I just went out like on a clear night when it was like it wasn't even like a night I'd shoot film on. Went out and I was like didn't feel bad about it. So yeah, so it's and that well, the other thing tough is too is I've been like working on a book now for like a year and a half, and it's like anything I shoot, it's like it's a
Wow.
possible book photo. You know what I mean? So like I don't put like I have like maybe like one like a few I have like a handful of photos I'm gonna use for my book that's like on my website, and that's like pretty much the only stuff that's like on the internet. Like all the rest are like all hidden, getting edited right now, and that's my goal for this weekend is to because I feel like I'm at the point now. I know I feel like people are so I feel like people are so like questionable if I'm actually gonna make a book or not because I've been talking about it for so long, and I've had like no release date, and it's just like yeah I'm working. It's the book's gonna come out, but it's like I just yeah I mean
Yeah,
I
but it's
think
a work in
for
progress.
me, it was like for the longest time, it was just like I always was feeling like I was like missing something in it. Like I'm like, there's something missing. And recently, I've been feeling like it's like done. I was like, I feel the shooting's done. So I've just been editing, and if I'm out and I see like something like I take a really good photo that I'm like, this is really good, this will fit in, I'll throw it in. But for me, I'm at the point where I feel like I'm done shooting for it. So I'm hoping for the rest of my quarantine here, I'm just gonna like my plan is like to just lock myself in my room and just edit until my eyes burn and they're done, so I can start printing them out and curating. So I want to get it done. I'm at the point now. I'm like the shooting's done. It's time to get this thing edited and sent to like publishers and figure that whole shit out. So I'm just like I'm ready to get it pumped out. I feel like it's the time. So, but yes, that was like one of the other things too with like shooting for like getting stuff for Instagram was like when I go out to shoot, I was going out to shoot for my book. I wasn't going out to shoot. I was in the mindset. I was like, I'm not going to shoot photos. I'm going out to shoot for a book. Like I'm going out. I'm trying to find good photos. You know what I mean? So that's like the mindset I've been in for like the last year and a half now. I think that's one of the reasons why my like my activity online slowed down a lot is because I was dedicating all my time shooting photos to a project and not just like taking photos because for that first that run where I was like, like firing all cylinders. I wasn't really working on a project. I was just like shooting photos to post on Instagram and stuff like that. So once I found like a physical project, I was like, oh, it's like, everything's like, what I mean? It was like just dumping everything that I thought was like really worthy into a book. But I'm gonna have a lot of B sides though, so I'm gonna have a lot of photos. I have like I think around 50 photos. I only plan on using 20 to 30 of them for the book. So I'm gonna have a lot of B
Oh, wow.
sides that just kind of throw
Well,
up on the internet. I'm probably just gonna save till like the summer, and then just when I'm not shooting a lot, like just
yeah.
do that.
Well, there's a few interesting things to unpack there. I think firstly, the fact you're working on a book is, I think that's very exciting. I'm very excited to see this. Secondly, I think the problem is because you said it. Did you say it online that you're
Yeah,
making a
yeah, I
book?
said outrightly.
So, so the problem is that it's a well-known fact that if you publish something online that you intend to do, you're less likely to do it because you've told people you're going to do it, and then you put that pressure on yourself to then do it. So that's probably part of the reason. So thirdly, like making a book is going to take, it's not going to be out within a year. I mean, it could be unless you're really shot for it. But if you're shooting for it actively, it's going to take a while. And to be honest, it's your book, it's your work, it's your curation. Take 10 years if you need to, because it's about you as an artist. It's about you and your vision of the world. And I think you shouldn't feel pressured. I don't know if you do, but you shouldn't feel pressured to create it just because people know it's going to
Yeah, I mean,
arrive. If that makes
I
sense.
don't really feel
And
pressure.
that's
It's more or less I feel like I feel like people have definitely like been a little like questionable if it's actually gonna happen.
But yeah, even if it never did, so what? End of the day, you're
Mhm.
enjoying yourself. You're having fun. It might just because you said you make a book, you didn't say it'll be this year. I mean, it's one of them, isn't it? And not just that, and you're the one who's doing all the work for it. So people are gonna have to wait. You know, I'm like, if that was me, I'd be like, sorry, I said I'll make a book, but I'm the one
I,
doing the work. You're gonna have to wait
oh
because
yeah,
you're not helping me,
I
are you?
think the
So
biggest thing I did an interview with someone, and at that point I was like, it was like I was kind of feeling how I was now about it, and I was like, yeah, I'm like I think it's gonna probably be around summertime, and then I was like after that like a little like a month or so of that interview, I was like looking at it, I was like, I'm like it's missing something, it's missing something. So it was just it never like it never happened because I was like I feel like it's still missing something. So
so with your work, when you post your work online, do you ever get a second opinion before you post?
maybe the only time I really get a second opinion is I'm like kind of tossed up about colors and I do like one edit has like this slight hue and the other has like a slight hue. I'll like message one of my
Yeah,
photographer friends like, yo, what do you think? I used to do that all the time, not as much anymore. I'm gonna kind of feel a little more confident about it where I just like go with it. But there are sometimes still
yeah,
here and there where it's like it's not that I'm like not confident about it. It's like I just be like tossed up between like two things where I'm like I'm not sure which one I like better or not. So I just get like a second opinion real quick. But normally, I feel like now I just kind of like I feel like I know what I like want or what I'm looking for, and I'll throw up. But I think I know from my book, I want my one friend that I shoot with all the time. I want him to help me curate it. So I have another hand. I think that's one of the other reasons why I've been taking so long with it is because I've been wanting to like break that bias with photos. So like I put those
yeah.
photos in like a folder, and I just haven't looked at them. I don't look at them. I just put them in a. Well, I see them and I'm like, if I think it's gonna work, I throw it in the book folder and I just don't look at them. And like the only time I ever look at them is I'm like, I want to edit them. If I'm like I want to go edit one of them, and I like hop in, look through something, and I'm like, this is like a definite, and I'll edit it. So like yeah, I for like a year there, I just
That's a good
sat
idea.
on them, didn't even look at them, and then this fall, I made a selections folder and I went through all my photos and I think I had like maybe 70 or something like that. I think I pulled like 45 from them and dumped them in there. And even looking at it now, I'm like, yeah, there's ones in here. I'm like, they're definitely not gonna be it. You know what I mean? So I can't remember what it was like Henry something. I can't remember the name of what his last name was. I watched like I remember because Todd Hido had a the San Francisco like news um like their news outlet out there back in like the 2000s did like a little like video on him like a 20-minute video of like him shooting explain his process and all this stuff and they did it with a few photographers and I can't remember what his name is. It's like Henry something. He's like more of a I think like a kind of like suburban kind of like daytime like street photographer almost. But he would like literally put his negatives in a book in like a closet for like at least a year before he would like look at it again because he was like he's like
Oh,
it's important to like break that bias because you might look at something like oh this is good and then you look at it a year later and you're like this is trash. Same how you might see a photo you don't see anything in but you look at it a year later and you're like yo this is really good. So
absolutely.
I've been trying to do the same but yeah I definitely still want another person to come in. I feel like I'll probably still like send it like when I have the full selection, or maybe even send it to like another person that's like not not someone here in person, maybe like a friend I'm like friends with that shoots on like Instagram that I talked a lot and see what they think before I like go.
Have you ever thought about sending it to a portfolio reviewer?
No, I never thought about it. That's like scary. Oh, it's like I'm like, oh, what if
Do it. Like, just do it, because what have you got to lose at the end
they
of the
just shit
day?
on it?
So you're
Yeah,
still going to create the work, aren't you?
that I know. I could just definitely see that being like second guessing. Yeah, I don't know. I think my plan for it I've had was like once it's all curated and stuff like that. I wanted to make a I mean, I don't know. I feel like a lot of book publishing companies just want PDFs, but I originally wanted to get like on Blurb and just go get a few like physical copies made and like send physical
Oh,
copies to
absolutely.
publishers because like,
Absolutely.
I'm not planning on I'm printing out all of them. I'm curating them all like physically and not on a computer. And I'm just gonna like basically like double side tape them into like a notebook and flip through them and see what I like. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I just don't feel like you're gonna
Yeah.
get the same like experience curating through that. So I don't know, but I don't want to. I know I talked to with some people and they were like talking about when you start talking to publishers. I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone till it's like a finished product, pretty much. You know what I mean? I don't want to like send it out there till it's like I don't mind waiting to hear back, but I'd rather send it out when it's ready than like start talking to people about it when it's not even ready yet. You know what I mean? It's like when Slow Dive made Just for the Day and told
Yeah, of course.
Creation Records that they had an album ready and they didn't have fucking anything written, so they just scrambled to get shit done. So it's like
Like, that's the thing. Like, you want to make sure that you kind of, at least to some degree, know that what you're putting
mhm,
out is something that you're proud of. The very fact that you're even thinking about creating a book and that you're obviously in the process of doing it, I think that's very admirable. And I think that's, I'm excited for it
I always
personally. That's
appreciate
gonna be
that.
cool. I can't wait to see it. But I think it's really interesting. And also, like, have you thought about making zine?
Yeah, I just like I've thought about it. I have like after I do my book, I have like two like 10 photo projects that I want to do that I want them to be physical. I see like when I like look at my work and I see it in physical sense, I see it in like a book, not like a zine. So I mean, obviously, I'm not going to get because I want my book to be hardback. The one I'm doing, I want it to be a hardback. No, I don't want it to be paperback. I want it to be
Yeah.
like legit. Like, not saying paperback's not legit, but I want it to be like very like I don't know, it's like a serious like it's a very personal. I mean, that's the thing. I want all my like for me, all the work, physical work and projects I do are all very personal to me. So I want to be like I don't know, just the when I look through a photo book, when I look through like a hardcover book, it's just like a whole different experience. It's just like you know, like
Oh, I
a
completely
big
agree.
hardcover. So
Completely
for
agree.
these two projects I have planned afterwards, they'll probably be paperback, but I want to do them in a big format. Like I want to be like a big format. I mean, I'm probably if it's only gonna be 10 photos, I'm not gonna be able to do. I don't think we will make a book out of it. But I mean, I'll probably have to do it like on my own or something like that because no publisher is gonna pick that up. So I'm gonna have to. My plan is to make it, like the size of this, like a binder size.
And I think that's actually one thing I wanted to talk to you about, because you said that, that you sit on work and stuff. So, and that's really interesting because we live in a society where it's very like, oh, you shoot, you post, you shoot, you post, you shoot, you post. So, like, how has it been for you not doing that and kind of sitting on work? Like, is that a comfortable situation for you?
Um, yeah, it is. It's definitely it was kind of tough at first. Not anymore. Not anymore. I can like sit on stuff and be like, oh yeah, I'm like I can like perfectly fine about it. Like I said, I think one of the things that like affected me a little bit was like I remember like it's just like it's so hard. People are so like, oh, don't pay attention to Instagram, but it's like so hard not to. You know what I mean? People it's so hard to not like
Yeah.
especially when it's like I don't know, people like don't take it seriously, but then at the same time, it's like it has turned into like a serious thing. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like when it's come to a
Yeah.
point where companies
Yeah.
like look at your Instagram as like your portfolio. You know what I mean? Like companies. I'm not trying to like get any like deals or I'm not trying to like get like I'm not out here like trying to like work with any like companies or because I'm not like a fashion photographer or anything like that. So
Yeah. But you like, but you never know. You could
Yeah,
license your images for
exactly.
book
But
covers.
it's
That'd
like
be a
a thing
great
where
idea.
people like I've like listened to podcasts of people that like and it's like I think I remember Willem when he was doing his C41 podcast, he interviewed her Instagram name is Silver, and she's like I think at the time this is like a year ago, so I think she's like 19, and she's already worked with like Nike and Google, and she's from like around New York I think, and she was just talking about the whole like how like like so many companies like they just like look at your Instagram as your portfolio now and stuff like that, and it's just like so it's like hard to hear people that are like in that it's like it's hard to not take it seriously when that's how like a lot of that's like where it's all moving to, you know what I mean? So I remember like whenever when I was sitting on when I like was started sitting on work and like slowing down and stuff like that, I remember this past year, holy shit, it was like hard not to. It's like I was trying not to pay attention. It was so hard to. But it's like I'd go on Instagram like every day, like lose like 5 followers. Like every day, I'd like go on. I'd be like losing. It was just like I remember I was at like when like right when I started like right when I really slowed down like this past year. I think I was at like 280 something, 87 something like that. And just when I started like posting again, I was down to like 4,000. I think. And I mean, I'm back. I like got back. I like got back to that point now, and I'm like, like starting to like pick up momentum again, like I used to have. But like, it was just like demoralizing. It's like because it's like you open up and it like goes right to your profile, and it's just like I could just see like there was like a big difference. It just going down and down. And it was just like, why is this even happening? I'm just like, it's just like, and it's just like it's hard to like. It's like yeah, it's just it's a weird thing. It's just like it's hard to like not pay attention because I hate being like, like revolving around Instagram and stuff like that. And I try, I mean, I took like, I had a website for a while and I just never updated it. And that was like one of the things I did recently was just like I sat down for like a weekend and just like completely redid my website and like made like a little like video for it and all this stuff like that. And was like, cause I'm like, that's how I want, cause I feel like I felt like Instagram's not like the best representation of my work, but it's still like the thing that also is like has been getting me, this is happening because of Instagram, you know what I mean? Right now it's like
Yeah,
like I'm friends
that's
with
true. That's very true.
I'm friends with like Willem and have like shot with him and stuff before, and that's because of Instagram, you know what I mean? Like I've talked and become friends with a lot of people, and like like when I started taking photos and I started like pigeonholing myself and getting a niche, there was a lot of photographers that were like just Instagram photographers that have like 20K or like popular on Instagram that I like looked up to, and and stuff like that, and like I've had the chance to talk to them all, and they've all like admired my work, all stuff, but it's all because of Instagram. So I mean, it's like it's hard because it's like all these things are happening because of Instagram. You know what I mean? So I'm gaining all. So it's hard to not take it seriously when it's like the reason where I'm kind of like at with everything is because of Instagram.
For me personally, I'm trying to think about a way of how can I get the people who are engaged with what I do actually engaged with what I do, as opposed to just liking, oh, and I'll follow, and oh, let's just say your work's nice, because that's all great and that's cool and that's fun. But at the end of the day, maybe you don't want people who just like your work. You want people to engage with it. You want people to buy prints.
I think that's one of the biggest like things for me is why I want to do physical work, and that's like because I just want to be. That's kind of like the whole thing why I just want to be like just like I would like to become like just like a well known photographer. Be like a name that people I guess would know in photography. So I guess now I'm trying to like kind of like I'm trying to like gain that like I guess like following or notoriety on Instagram, so I have an audience to engage in my physical work because that will carry on forever. So if Instagram dies or whatever, it's like there's people out there that would have have had books that I create or something like that, or in prints and stuff like that. And I mean,
Yeah.
I have my website, and that's going to be up forever. So it's like I think for Instagram for me right now, it's like just gaining that kind of like that audience that I can kind of like converge into, you know, long time audience outside Instagram with, physical work and stuff like that. So it's like, I think that's like that's the kind of like the way I look at it because I would love for something to just come along and just like because Instagram has become such a like an anti-photographer like platform, and they just have made it's been so hard to
Yeah.
grow, and I mean it's just like and also I mean it's good because it's like anyone can have a bat at it, but at the same time it's like it gets so oversaturated, and it's like it's just yeah, and then it just
Yes,
sucks
that
because it's
yeah.
like it's like all these people, you gain an audience, but then it's like only 10% of them even like see your work. So it's like, I don't know. That's why, and I think that's one of the things that I like was like really like that really like motivated me to get to make my website more was that like, like if you're really interested in my photography, you'll go look at my website. You know what I mean? You'll go look at that, what's on Instagram. You'll go see that. So you know what I mean? So it's like, I would love more than any for something better that's like more centered around photography to just come along and like knock it out of the ring or just kind of take over something because it's just like it's become just such like a toxic place. I feel like Instagram, it's like I said, for me, it's like the things that I really truly enjoy about it is like the people that I make like people
Yeah,
that
the
I've made
community you
connections
built.
with and continue to like make connections with now. That's the only thing I really like that makes me like excited about Instagram. Because other than that, it's like I've been just trying to have it lately when I post to just like not look at. I mean, but it's hard because then I always try to like respond to everyone and be thankful for the people giving me support and reply to everyone and stuff like that. So it's hard for me to not kind of pay attention to, but I definitely try like when I post to just kind of like let it ride and like I just try not to look at like I don't know why like Instagram's been I guess hiding likes from people. I want to fucking hide my likes already because I don't want to see that shit.
Let's talk about your website for a minute because the first place I went is your website. Because the first place I go to anybody's work when I interview them is their website, and I look for their website intensely. Your website's really funny because you don't have a biography on your website. Is there a reason for that? Because I was super curious. Because the first thing I do is I look at a person's biography and I base the first probably 3 or 4 questions off their biography of like their themes, like where they grew up and how they studied photography or whatever. And so you had none of that, and I was like, oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting. Is
no,
there a reason
I
for
don't
that?
know. I guess I just like I don't know. I just like I feel like I'm not good at writing like shit about myself. I remember whenever oh, no, I remember whenever my like when I was in like that my metal band, like my first big band that I was in for a while, and I remember we first started. And I wrote a biography on our page, and it was the most cringy fucking thing I've ever read in my life. Like I look back at it, and it just like I just like wipe it away. I'm like, no, 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 I don't want to read that. It's awful. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like I don't really know what to say. Like I don't know. I feel like there's not much to say. I feel like I guess like my work kind of like speaks for itself a bit. So I just kind of like put it basic. Like yeah, I'm from like Pennsylvania. I shoot photos. That's not you know what I mean. It's like I feel like I feel like I definitely like pigeon. I mean, it's like I don't know. It's hard because I feel like sometimes when you say stuff about yourself on that in a biography, you almost come off kind of like pompous or you kind of come off like almost naive. You know what I mean? It's not like I don't want to be on there and be like it's like I don't know. It's like you talk about yourself in the third person, you talk about yourself in the first person. You know what I mean? It's like yeah. I remember it's like I went to this gallery in my town, and I thought it was like just an art gallery, and it turns out it's actually this one photographer's gallery, and I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it until I was
Oh,
like in there and I was reading the notes beside the photos, and it was like a manual like sat at like this time for like waiting for the perfect moment and stuff like that. I'm like, oh fuck, this is like all one person's like work, and what I mean, I didn't realize it. It's just like I don't know. It's like I think one of the I think one of the things that did it was I think like whenever I was first making my website or whatever, I really and this is like because I made my bio when I first made my website. I haven't like updated it at all. Like that's the one thing I really didn't update was my bio because I was like it's fine how it is I guess. But like whenever I mean I was more worried about I was more like I don't know. I feel like my work's obviously more art. It's not like it's just art. So it's like it's just like I feel like people come to the website to like look at the photos and not to really inquire and like any sort of business stuff. So like I don't know, it's like I really didn't know like what to do, like what to put in. So I was just looking at other people's websites that I looked up to. a lot of them were just like really simplistic and didn't really have anything written in them. It was just like photos. You know what I mean? It was like their bio was like their name, their contact info, and like it was like that was it. It was like I shoot like this type of photo, and that's it. You know, it's nothing like it was nothing like really like crazy or like informative or anything like that. So I mean, maybe it's because people like a lot of people already know who those people are, so it's like they don't really need like an introduction. So, but yeah, I don't know. So I just kind of looked at that, but it's just like, yeah, I think I'm just not good at like writing stuff about myself or writing like I don't know. I don't know. I try not to like talk about myself and like because I just don't want to come off as like arrogant or like so maybe that's like why I don't, but I never even like thought about it. I think you're the first person that's like, brought up that's like, hey, you don't have a bio.
So yeah, the biography thing is actually quite interesting, and I think in a way you're right. Your work doesn't really need a biography because it does speak for itself. But I think also, so okay, so let's get into your work a little bit more. So the interesting thing about your work is that it's very ambiguous, um, and I personally love this the kind of ambiguous cinematic vibe that I get from it. But like, how important is context for you in your work in terms of when you post an image?
Yeah, I think it is, and I think that's like I feel like I don't know. I used to like add like little like on Instagram. I used to add like little like in the bio in like the bio of the photo. I would like write like something in there to kind of give it a little bit of a direction. But I kind of stopped doing that recently. I just kind of like post it and just like let people kind of interpret it on their own. Um, but yeah, I think there's definitely I think that's one of the big things about making like a book or any sort of like series of work is having that like context to it to kind of give it more direction. And I think it's one of the things I'm most excited about making like this book and for future projects is like the meaning behind it, like the context behind the photos. So they're not just photos and yeah, there's
It's
a
like a
body of
body
work,
of work
certain
as
images.
opposed to
But
just
yeah, I
images.
think I think yeah, it's like I think the mood I know kind of gives that. I mean, I feel like most of my photos like always revolve around kind of like I guess that kind of like almost like like melancholy feel or was like kind of depression or stuff like that. So like that kind of like like loneliness kind of feel. So I feel like my photos kind of give that off a bit. So, but I
Yeah.
think yeah, context is very important. I feel like that makes your work translate a lot better.
Like the thing about photography is that everyone can have a camera, but not everyone can take the same image. And I think that's like the really interesting thing. It's like, yeah, your work might be compared to Todd's, but your work isn't his. And I think that's the interesting thing. And I think knowing more about what the techniques and stuff doesn't necessarily mean you'll use them. It just means that you know more about it. And I think that's really, really interesting because actually one of the questions I was going to ask you later was about the technical aspect. But that's really interesting because it just shows that just because you use the same camera or you use the same equipment to create an image doesn't mean you shoot the same image. Like you have your own visual style. You have your own kind of parameters for what makes a
Yeah,
good image and what doesn't
exactly.
make a good image. So that's
I think one of like
super
the
interesting.
like things that someone said to me that was like probably the greatest thing that ever told me was one of my friends. He's like from out in LA that like I met on Instagram or whatever, and he was like talking. He like told me he could always tell like my photos apart from like anything else like he sees on Instagram. Like he like sees it and doesn't have to see like the handle, like knows that like I shot it. And I'm like that's like because that's the thing. One of the biggest goals for me is to like set myself apart. And I think definitely like you know it's tough with how saturated everything is to kind of like set yourself apart and whatnot. So it's like yeah, it's like I mean I'm like thankful that I don't get fog. For like instance, like I'm very grateful I don't get fog around here because I feel like my photos would like resemble Todd Hido's too much because he always shoots in like heavy fog. So that's just like how like for me it's like one of the things I always try to do is shoot when it's like cloudy because the way the clouds like paint across the sky on like a long exposure I think that's one of the things that like I always like to have in my photos is that get that like very like painterest sky from like the cloud movement. So yeah, there's like certain things that I try to like kind of link with my photos. So yeah, it's like I feel like my photos are always like very clear and like crisp. It's like, you know what I mean? There's no like fog really ever in my photos or whatnot. So yeah, so that's like one, I guess, property that I'm like thankfully I'm like it's like sucks because obviously it's so cool to have like heavy fog, but then at the same time I'm like, no, it's probably for the better because I feel like it's like a way for people to kind of like that sets my like work apart from like, you know, Hido, for example. You know what I mean?
So I think it's really interesting because now you said that, I'm super curious to see what you would do if you came to England and you shot in England. I'd be really interested to see that. Would you ever consider shooting images in different cities if you could? Or and is that a goal you would like to do?
It'd be cool. I don't know. It's like even for me, I don't like branch out too far from where I like live. I really never like go too far out. I kind of try to stick around, and it's hard. Like where I live, the neighborhoods are so like mixed up, so like it's nothing's like uniform. Everything's just jumbled up together like random shit. So it's like I feel like I guess that's like one like I think one like trait of my photos that the it's always like the houses are always like different. They're never like a certain style house. They're always like I try to cut it down to single story houses. Uh, just because I mean, one, I have like a little more of a connection with single stories. I mean, I have lived in two-story houses, like growing up in them, but like I don't know. There's like I guess like a lot of like the memories and stuff that my work's connected to is all from like single stories, like ranch style houses, and also it's just easier for framing. For like single story houses, there's like when I come to when I look for houses, I always look for like single story houses with like siding. I hate shooting brick. It never like it's so hard to make brick look good on photos. Like you have to have the right lighting and everything like that, and it's just like it's not reflective either. Like so it like just looks off. It looks very bland and like yeah, it's just like I always try to stay away from shooting brick houses because it's just like but yeah, no. So it's like but like around here it's so like you look at like you know Hido's work and it's like it's like I mean he shoots from like the you know mainly the it's so funny because it's like I think it's in house hunting. There's one photo from Pittsburgh because he's from Kent, Ohio, which is about like an hour and a half away from me. Yeah, I actually
Oh,
went to go visit his neighborhood one time. I had to go to Kent, and I was like, "Oh, Todd Hido's from Kent." And I remember watching a on YouTube, watching a lecture, and he like showed on the maps where he like grew up at, so like knew where to go. So I wanted to go check it out, and it was just like it was crazy because it's like he always like talks about how much like his work is like resemblant of like where he came from in his home. But it's always about home for him. And then neighborhood, when you go there, you like everything like his work immediately like, clicks. Like you're like you like and it's crazy because all his work, especially the work that he's known for, is all shot in like San Francisco and out on the West Coast. But like you go to the neighborhood and it's like it like makes sense. It's so weird, but it's yeah, it's like funny because in house hunting, there's one photo because I guess he went to like the Pittsburgh Art Institute, which they're actually not even like an artist. I think they closed down a few years ago, but he went there and there's one photo in the whole book from Pittsburgh, and like you can tell it apart. It's like it just sticks out like a sore thumb in his book. It's literally like this like it's like this like row house, this like thin house that's because there's like what happened in like Pittsburgh, especially in the city, and even around here, a lot of the houses are all like built like next to each other, like they're like binded together. So sometimes they'll like demolish one. So there'll be like the house, and then one side just like all brick, like these tall skinny houses that are all brick. And this one, the whole neighborhood was just wiped out except this one house. So if there's just one like lone house with like a white car sitting out front of it in like the winter time, and I'm like, that's Pittsburgh. I'm like, I know that, and like, and there was like a lecture he did recently, and he showed it in there and said it was in Pittsburgh, and I was like, I knew it. Like I knew it's from Pittsburgh. Like it just looks like it. So yeah, like that's like there's like out where I live, there's not a lot of uniform to like houses. It's very like you gotta like search. it's not like where I live, it's not like bangers everywhere. It's like really, it's like there's like some photographers I watch, it's like they go on walks, and it's like they're like looking around. There's like all these like old classic cars. Everything's like super like night, like cool, like uniform looking. Where I live, it's like you go out and it's like there's like the town that I live next to, Bridgewater. There's like this neighborhood, all these houses, and there's like a random fucking mobile home in all of it. You know what I mean? It's like, and then there's like this one photo I took from a book recently, and it's like, I think actually I made it my profile picture on Instagram. But like literally, if you like, you're sitting there, and I took it in a back alley, and if you just look to your right, there's like these super nice condos that are exactly the same, literally butt up against his house, and then you have this like little trash house in the middle of all of it. Yeah, it's so weird. It's I don't know. It's like the where I live, it makes no sense. But I really just kind of stick around like a 30-minute radius. I go to Ohio to shoot like Eastern Ohio a lot to shoot photos. Uh, I get a lot. It's like there's like a town called the city called East Liverpool that's like right that I go shoot photos, and it's so sketchy, but like the best photos. The neighborhoods that are so like have so much character to them, but it's like dodgy and like scary going there.
Yeah, so how do you actually stay safe while shooting at night? That's a very good question to ask you, actually. Like, how do you make sure that, you're protected and your equipment is protected, particularly if you are potentially working alone?
The biggest thing is to go to places you know and you're familiar with. So like I definitely, I know where to like not go. You know what I mean? And then there's some places like East Liverpool I go through a lot. There's like a antique mall that I go there to like once a month, and like I skate there and stuff like that. So like there are like a lot of like neighborhoods that are foreign to me. Not foreign, but they're like that aren't like where I live. Like a lot of neighborhoods in Ohio I go to, I've been to a lot of times during the daytime, and so I've been able to kind of like see around and like know what to like. You may kind of get to see it in the daytime when people are active and stuff like that. So, but like I know like whenever I've gone out to camp before, I've shot a few photos. Like I think I've like one photo in my book that is from like Kent, Ohio. But I just don't shoot there because it's just like I'll shoot there to just kind of take because like when I see stuff, like I really don't like go around because I don't know the area. You know, I'm not familiar with it, so I really it's like it's very like foreign. So I don't really, I'm not like really like super comfortable being there, like shooting there at night on my own.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of like it's all about I guess like comfort. So and like kind of knowing where I'm going, but also it's like you just gotta be like friendly. Don't be like suspicious, I guess. Like be obvious. I don't know. When I see people, I say hi to them.
Like, have you ever been stopped when you've been out
Yeah,
shooting?
it's funny because I've had well, actually, there's one time I did. It's it's so funny because it's like there's this page that used to like this big that used to be this. He stopped doing it now, like recently, but it was like a bigger like like a page. It was like nowhere diaries kind of thing, and it was all like night photography. And I like submitted my work there a bunch. And
Yeah.
then he like the dude who he like messaged me. He's like where are you at in like Western PA? And I was like 45 minutes from Pittsburgh. And he ended up being from Pittsburgh. So he like linked up with me and my one friend. We went on shot. Yeah, we went on shot, and it was so funny. We were like
Oh,
telling because
wow.
me and my one friend we were out. We were like literally like down this like on the road I grew up in, and my dad lives out in like the middle of nowhere. And my friend saw this tree, like this dead tree out by itself in this field, and there was like this like old like fallen down electric fence, and there was no like trespassing signs or anything. There's none of that stuff there. So he went out and took this photo, and someone
Oh,
yelled from this house from like it was like literally like 200 meters away, like yelled out and like, "Hey, what are you doing? He's like, sorry, I'm leaving." And I parked in the middle of the road. Like I parked in the road. I wasn't like on like so I just like I'm like I'm just gonna sit in my car or whatever. Like you can go. And he came back, we're sitting there, and this car comes like speed. This is broad daylight too. Broad daylight, literally like like a quarter mile from where like I grew up at. This guy comes speeding down the road, has like a fucking gun in his hand, gets out, he's like banging on my window, and he's like, "What are you guys doing here?" Like super like hick, like it's so funny because like I'm not in the South, but like if
yeah.
you like where I grew up in Chippewa, we have this town that's like a part of our school district that's like literally like up against our like where I live called Darlington, and it's just like a more country area. And, like everyone there, like they're from like fucking Alabama from like the South, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't get like what's up with that. It's like we don't live in the South, but people around here talk like they're from the South. It's so weird.
Everything's fine until you take your camera out, and then people start looking at you weirdly.
I think that's like one of the things about because I shoot the Mamiya RB67. There's one of the plus sides I'll shoot that people like don't know what it is, so they're normally like more intrigued or just confused about it because they're like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's a camera." And they're like, "That's a camera?" Like they're like confused about it. So I guess I think one of the plus sides about it, it's always like they're more intrigued than like weirded out. But every once in a while, I've had people like I was out shooting in Ohio in that one like sketchy neighborhood, and these people came on the porch, like, "What are you doing out there?" And I'm like taking photos. Like, for what? I'm like, to take photos. And they're like, "No, you should leave." And I'm like standing on like property. I was about to be like, "Dude, we're in public property. Like, fuck off." My friend was like, "We'll leave. We're almost done." And I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, for some reason I was just feeling agitated, and I was like, dude, we're not even like.
Yeah, I think because at the end of the day, it's like you're not doing anything
Yeah,
wrong. You're taking
you
a
know what I mean.
picture.
I
No,
feel like it's
like
just
what's
that it's like nighttime. It's just weird, so people get weirded out. I always have this like luck or these weird things. I'll take a photo of someone's house, and like right when I'm like finished with it and like closing the camera, like some car comes pulling up, and I just like face the other way, and they like pull into the driveway, and I'm like all it's happened to me so many times. It's so weird. But yeah, I've had this thing of every like so many times when people I'll be taking a photo of the house and someone comes home like right when I'm at the end of the exposure or something like that, and I just I just like stop the exposure and like flip the camera around the other way and like act like I'm taking a photo of something else, and they just never think anything of it. Yeah, it's
I think that's actually something really interesting because you want to respect people's personal space, but at the same time you're intrigued by it, and it's kind of weird because had you had to go and ask their permission, it probably would have been a lot
yeah, it's so
different for
weird.
you
I
to
mean, I
do
think that's
so.
like one of the big things is to not like have people in the photos, not be able to see like the inside. Because I feel like if you do make it too personal, people can't like connect with it. You know what I mean? I feel like if you leave stuff more like open ended, I mean, if they just see a house with like a light on, it's like you can't see into it or anything like that. You don't see anyone. It's kind of like I think you can relate to it more. I guess when you like see in someone's house, I feel like it's like too much. But I feel like I at the same time I feel like I don't know, like I always try to like pick houses that have like character or that like tell a story from the outside. You know what I mean? But like it's like I don't know. There's always like I feel like there's always something certain that because it's like I mean a lot of times I always try to take photos of houses that look kind of like roughed up on the outside because I feel like it kind of reflects it reflects the life on the inside.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
at the same time, sometimes I see like a perfect house, and I'm like, is it perfect though? You know what I mean? Where it's almost like this like too perfect, very like plain Jane. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's like my parents when they got divorced, they just built like a new house when I was young, and it was just like very clean and proper on the outside. Nothing like overdone, just like a plain, nice, like perfect house with nothing like nothing like wrong with it and nothing like overdone with it. You know what I mean? No weird statues, just like very plain. Like there's one film in my book where it's just like this plain white house, really clean, very perfect, but there's like nothing else going on the property. You know what I mean? It's like just perfect. There's nothing. It's not like this nice house where someone's got like a nice statue or you know what I mean. But it's like this very just clean, and I relate to that in a way. But then I also relate to like a messy house because like whenever I was like the growing up on this one street, it's actually what like my book is kind of based around. But like my one, like it's funny, like my one neighbor was like super perfect, nice house, and my next door neighbor on the other side was like this messy, like rundown house, like this awful household and all this stuff like that. So like, yeah, like I don't know. I definitely try to find those houses that have like some sort of character on the outside, whether it's like the house is like dirty on the outside or like you know what I mean, or like there's like it's like I don't know. I feel like my best photos I've taken that I feel most connected with are like the photos when I was taking it that I was like uneasy while taking it, where I was like my heart was racing and like you know what I mean. There's been photos where like I could hear the people like talking on the inside, and the house is just like a wreck, and I'm just like sitting there like I can't imagine what the household's like. Like, I mean, whenever I remember there was like one time this where I grew up where this neighbor was, and it was like one time I ever went to their house and like it was just awful. And I never want to go there again. I mean, it was always just like hear them fighting and shit like
Yeah,
that, but would never see like the one time I saw it. So like
yeah.
whenever I get in those situations where like I see this house and it looks bad on the outside, I can hear them and stuff like that. It's just like this unease, but it's like those are always my like best photos that I feel most connected. That always turn out the best for some reason. It's
See,
very
that's
weird.
super interesting because it takes this whole idea of the house as a character and the house as a representation of the internal people, not just the inside of it, but also our feelings and emotions. Because particularly nowadays, in the last year, where people are more inside, people are taking care of their houses more, and it's like they're making sure their fences are painted, and that's a really interesting reflection of kind of the internal nature and our emotions, and kind of just the internal dialogue on an external surface, which would be the buildings. And for me personally, like I'm super. So I used to hate pictures of buildings. It's funny. I used to hate landscapes and hate pictures of buildings, because I was like, oh, they're just so boring, and it's just a building. But now I seriously can't get enough of them because buildings are super interesting because we rely upon them. The great adage that I love and I also hate is like we're safe as houses. Like I love that because houses aren't safe. Anyone can break into that. A tornado could rip through that tomorrow. They're not safe, but
Mm-hmm.
and they're both, for me, buildings are great because they're both restrictive and freeing. And I think that's really interesting. I personally love that dichotomy and that dialogue. And I think your work it's really interesting because at night, and I think the nighttime part of it gives everything kind of a very disquiet vibe. And it's all a bit like, should you really be here looking at this? Which is what I like about it personally.
It's like I actually I want to add this. I just thought of it recently too, but I wanted to add my mom told me one time, and it was like after I started shooting like houses, and it like really like it made me feel so much more connected to it. But she like was like just like a comment on my work was telling me about like before my parents got divorced, whenever they would fight all the time, that she would like leave and go drive at night and like see houses with like a light on and like wonder if like the family inside were having like the same problems that we were and stuff like that. So yeah, like and that's something I want to have that in like my like have because you know people always in like books always have like a
Yeah.
poem or some shit. And I don't know what to write or I was like that would be perfect. Just have like that quote by my mom like in the front page. That's gonna be it now. That's the only thing because that's like well it's so the whole my whole book was actually like it was supposed to be a series for a
Oh,
magazine.
okay.
So so I grew up on this. So it's called the books we call Memories from Bechtel, and it's the street I grew up on. And it's like the way I see it is like I grew up there from third grade to seventh grade before I went to high school. So like intermediate to like middle school because my high school started like early or whatever, like a grade earlier. So I remember the whole reason why we moved there was we lived on church property and they kicked us out because they wanted to like turn our house into like a
Oh,
office or something like that, and then they just like tore it down some years later. So that like kickstarted this whole like this kind of like I remember for like a long time I like hated like the church and shit,
yeah,
and
that would
it
do
just
that.
like now I mean I don't hate like God or anything. I just personally really don't believe in anything. I don't know. There's so much that we don't know. I'd rather just
Oh
like
yeah, I
live
agree.
life
I
and
completely
like
agree with that.
whatever happens. But like my mom's like religious. I mean, she battled with it and she's like religious again and stuff like that. But that was like one big thing, and I feel like that age I was in was like the age where like I can like I first started like my memory first started becoming you know what I mean where I first started like I'm able to remember that stuff clearly. And I feel like that's like a part time where I feel like your mind's very moldable and you start to kind of like understand stuff. So like that was kind of like what kickstarted us moving there. And then just like the time I lived there, both my parents had like long relationships with like so basically I had like two step parents at the same time, and both those relationships for my parents failed, and they lasted for a long time, and they both had both of them had family issues. So like my upbringing with my own parents weren't like bad or anything. Like my parents like got along after their divorce. I'm like really thankful for that. So, but I've like witnessed like second like hand from like you know my step
Yeah.
families, I guess, of like their bad life. So like that's what like my whole book is about, is kind of like, I guess that like essence of like broken homes and kind of like heartbreak and like, failing relationships and stuff like that. So it was originally a 10 photo series that this magazine, they like reached out to me and wanted me to like submit some to the mag, like a series. So I did this whole thing and they just like completely disregarded it, which in hindsight was like really good because my original idea was around that. I was gonna call it like signs of domestic conflict, but like I then realized like that's such a more personal, like this is such a more personal name that relates to me way more, and is like not just kind of like a generic overview of like like a bad home. So this is like more relatable to me and way more personal to me. So hindsight, yeah, I'm very thankful that they like turned it down. I mean, I really wasn't too like mad at the time. Wasn't like upset about it. I was like, oh, whatever. I was like, I'm still gonna be. They wanted like other images, so like I'm still gonna be in it. So I'm not really that upset about it. But yeah, I'm like glad they did it because in hindsight, I'm like, oh, now you have this this great work that's like really personal to me and very meaningful that I get to share to make as like my first like book. So that's the whole story behind it. And I have like a whole, I guess, like proof
Yeah.
or, whatever that I wrote for the zine, for the series. But I feel like I'd rather just have
Yeah.
my mom's like what she told me
That's
be
nice.
in that.
I think that's really
Because it's
lovely.
just
I
way
think that's
more
actually a really
personal.
nice idea. I think that's a great idea because it's so personal. And what is it about photography that allows you to create such personal work that you can't do something else like say art, like if you were to paint your images?
Um, I just like it's not even that like I guess that like I mean, I've never really like tried to paint much. I used to be, music was like one thing I was like really good at that I just kind of like lost touch with. And I mean, that was like one thing I remember like, and I used to have people that would come up to me and say like how much like my music
That's
helped them and
great.
stuff like that. And it was like, my band, like how much it helped them. It was just like insane to me. You know what I mean? So that was like one thing I was good at. And I think, I don't know, I just like picked up photography and was just doing that, you know what I mean, for the longest time. So I just like got to the point where I want to get serious with it. Now it's just turned into this. So I guess there's not really a particular like, I don't think there's like a reason why I picked this like medium to like uh medium to do this. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I guess it just was that's the parts that like
Yeah,
align
you're just
for
naturally
me, I
drawn to
guess.
it.
You know what I mean?
Just, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like music. I used to be like music was like what I want to do. I mean, I
Oh
toured
wow.
before, and like I put so much money into like music and like instruments and all this stuff. I mean, I still have just so much gear, like music gear that's just like in storage, and even in my like apartment now, I just like for even just like the little like music I work on now, I still have, like a decent amount. So I used like, and that's how I am with cameras. I mean, I got like 40 film cameras in a
Wow.
cabinet, a glass cabinet. I only like a few of them, but like I got like what I mean. That's just like how I am. So yeah, I guess it's just the right thing. I don't know, because I mean, I feel like I was never good enough at drawing or whatever that I felt like I was good where I like want to take more steps with it. And I feel like photography, I was something that I felt like I was strong with. So I just like kind of stuck with it. So I feel like how I am. Like I feel like a lot of things. It's like it's either like I'm kind of like mediocre at it, or like I'll hit it like strongly, and I'm like can kind of gauge whether or not it's something that's like worth like looking more into.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So like yeah, I just don't I don't have a steady for photographer. I mean for a photographer, I have a steady hand, but for like drawing and painting, I don't have a steady hand. I'm like shaky. So
So one of the really interesting things about your work is the sense of realism in terms of, photography is inherently a realistic medium. Like you take a picture of the world. When somebody looks at your photos, do you want them to see a place that's a real or a place that's imagined?
I think the way I shoot kind of puts the subject in like an alternative reality because I don't shoot like my photos like landscapes. I shoot them almost like portraits. very like head on, like where I like make whatever the subject is like the center of the attention. And I really don't. I'm very selective. Like when I take a photo, I'm very selective of like what I include in like the foreground and like this, the background and foreground. I'm very like very selective. Like there will be like one thing, like a fucking like colored trash can. I'm like, no, I can't take the photo because that trash can. You know what I mean? It's like there's stuff like weird stuff that's like in photos that will stop me from taking a photo. You know how like cool the house is? Like it just, you know what I mean? So it's like it's funny because like if you like go around and see some of my photos, you'd be like, I got shocked that the environment they're in. Because I've taken like photos of houses that look like they're bad, but then they're like surrounded by nice things. So it's like, you know what I mean? So it's like I could take like I'll take a photo. Like there's like for instance like this one photo I took. You've probably seen it's like this. It's very blue and green hued, and it's like a fence with like a trailer with like a blue curtain, and it's like very blue green. It's like just a fence with like a trailer popping up over top of it, and it just looks very like messy. It just looks very like unwelcoming. And that was like one of the photos I took that I was like on edge about. I was like hiding behind like a tree while taking it because it was like there was like a church parking lot. It was so weird. It was this really nice neighborhood, and there was this one trailer that was just like it looked like a hoarder's. Like it was like the yard was a mess. It was all fenced in. There was just one in this nice neighborhood, and yes, I took it. I was like in the spotlight of this like under like a street. Like it was so nerve wracking taking. But that's like I guess like a good example of like I guess kind of separating it from reality. Because if you look at it, you'd be like, that looks like a bad area. You know what I mean? That looks like a rough area. But then if you were there in person, you'd be like confused. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of my photos, if you saw them in real life, you'd be like, you know what I mean? Very taken, like, very like, huh? Like it's like doesn't seem like it wouldn't. I guess a lot of them you wouldn't like think of it how you see it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of for how like mixed matched the areas I live in and like the demographics that live in the area are so like back to back. You go to like you'll be in like a good neighborhood, drive like a mile, be like in a bad neighborhood. It's just so like pushed together, and then so some of that like bleeds into each other. So then you have very like areas where you have these really nice houses and nice surroundings, and then there's that one bad looking, like that one rough looking house or one rough looking area. So I can like kind of like seclude it out. So that I would say yeah, and like I guess my photos are like definitely like I mean they're narrative driven. So I guess they're like for me the photos I want them to be narrative driven and have like a story like make you think of more of like a story aspect of like just looking at the photo like, oh that's pretty. So I guess like the way I shoot puts it in this like different reality where it's just like you're just like focused in on like one thing and you don't know what else is going on around it. So like because like a lot of people they might take the photos from like far back where you see more. Where I take them more like closed in on one thing where you're focusing on one subject and one subject only. And then I try, then if there's stuff in like the foreground or background, I'll try to like include it to give it some context. You know what I mean?
That concludes the first part of my interview with Jake Tffb. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions or comments about it, please send me an email via theflyingfruitbowl@gmail.com or via social media. The Flying Fruit Bowl audio interviews can now be found on a variety of sites such as Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to support the platform, please consider subscribing on any of those sites and by sharing this interview. Also, please don't forget to check out theflyingfruitbowl.co.uk for daily art inspiration, and if you're a creative, please get in touch for a chance to be featured or interviewed. Once again, thank you so much for listening, and until next time folks, please stay safe.